All right, I think we're going to get started. So, good morning, everyone. I guess almost afternoon now. Thank you for joining us for the fourth day of Economic Development Week. We've had a pretty busy schedule this week. Monday, we had a lunch and learn session with SUNY Cobblestone, IRV, and AIM. Tuesday was the annual tourism brochure exchange that was up at Red Fox Stables. And then yesterday we had our Seek Digital Power Hour on SEO basics, and then we had a broadband chat with Schoharie County and Midtel talking about the new broadband build across the county. And today we have Caroline Myran, who is the Agricultural Development Specialist for the county, and she's going to be giving us an agriculture update for the state of the county. So thank you all for being here today, and I'm going to throw it over to you, Caroline.
Great. Thanks so much, Emily. I'm going to just share my screen right now. And okay, great. Well, thank you so much for introducing me. As Emily mentioned, I'm the Agricultural Development Specialist for the county. My role is to support the ag economy of our county through connecting farmers with resources, funding opportunities, educational resources, technical assistance. I also coordinate among all the ag agencies and organizations that support farmers in our county and our region, and I lead research initiatives to better support the agricultural economic development of the county and act as a liaison between farmers and our elected officials. I also manage our ag and farmland protection plan and our board. So I recognize many of you on today, but I would love for everyone to just introduce themselves in the chat, say if you represent an organization, just so we have a sense of who's in the virtual room today. That would be great. I want to thank Seek for inviting me to be a part of Economic Development Week and providing an opportunity to share the ag and farmland trends that we're seeing across the state and our county. And I'm also going to be sharing some exciting results from the farmers market survey that we just concluded in April. So I have a full agenda today. It's pretty data heavy. I encourage you to put questions in the chat. Emily will be monitoring that. But you can also just stop me if you need any clarification. And hopefully you won't get too sick of hearing me talk for the next 45 minutes. So, okay, so we're going to start with the state of agriculture in our county. This is data that I have analyzed and aggregated from the Census of Agriculture from the USDA. Most recently, it came out in 2022. They come out every 5 years. So when I say in the last decade, I'm really often referring to from 2022. So we're going to be talking a bit about overall trends across the state, just how we compare a bit, and then get into our county and look at, who's farming here, what are we growing, and some trends. Okay, so starting with this high-level overview of kind of the overall economic impact of agriculture in our state. We are a major agricultural state, and overall, the agricultural economy of New York is growing. Our farming contributed $2.7 billion to our state's GDP, which is up from 2.4 5 years ago. In 2019, farming and related business directly supported over 163,000 jobs. And I want to highlight that in Schoharie County, our market value of ag products sold was about 2.3% of New York's total ag sales. So our slice of county here in the Mohawk Valley contributes to about 2% of New York's total ag sales. Another major trend that we've seen in the last decade is that farm incomes are growing. Gross farm income grew 47%, which is huge. However, expenses also grew a very large amount. So expenses grew by 42%. It should be noted that it's a good trend to have farm income grow more than expenses, though. Looking at other general trends across the state, the number of farms and land in farms are decreasing across our state. And this is, again, a trend that we're seeing across the country. New York has lost 14% of its farms in the last decade. And most notably, we are losing farms and land in farms at a faster rate than our New England neighbors and than other states in the U.S. Our farms are also getting bigger. In the last decade, average farm size increased by 5%. The majority of New York farms are considered what we call small farms by the USDA's definition. In 2022, over 90% of New York farms made under 350,000, which is how the USDA often defines small farms. And 75% of our farms are under 200 acres. So we're really farming on a different scale than the Midwest or the West, because that's how the USDA groups us in these categories. When we get into looking at Schoharie County demographics of farmers and our land, I kind of have my own definition so that we can see some more nuance there around who's farming here and how many like small farms versus big farms there are. What's considered a big farm in Schoharie County may not be considered a big farm, say, in Kansas, but for us, it's big. So agritourism, fastest growing farm income category. This is an important point to highlight. It's also a great segue into sharing the farmers market results and survey that I'll share after this. Agritourism income grew by 78% in the last decade, which is a really big jump. And it's, as I mentioned, it's the fastest growing market channel for farmers. Labor and feed comprised the majority of farm expenditures. Anyone who's farming will not be surprised by that statistic. Okay, so now we're getting into Schoharie County. So these are farmer demographics for who's farming here. So most of our farmers are male, they are white, and over a third are over 65, and more than half are in this middle-aged category. I do want to note that 8% are young producers, that's under 35. This is our future here. And we have 63 farmers that are veterans. Some additional statistics here. 85% of our farmers have internet. This is a huge jump from a decade ago. So a decade ago, only 43% of our farmers had internet. I will say that today, only 66% of our farmers have access to high-speed internet, which is broadband or fiber. So, farmers have access to internet at a lower rate than the general population. The USDA also defines a new and beginning farmer based on how long a farmer has been farming, has nothing to do with how old they are. So we have 190 farmers that have been farming under 10 years. Again, this is a really solid slice of who's farming here, and it shows a really great trend towards new farmers in our county. 41% of our farmers farm primarily, and 58% have an off-the-farm job too. So here's how our agricultural land is being used. We, it, in line with state trends, we are losing the number of farms we have, and our farms are getting bigger. This is also what we're seeing across the state. Unlike the state, however, we have actually gained acres in farmland. So the state lost about 9% of its farmland in the last decade, and we've gained about 10%. So we've gained 10,000 more acres in farmland, which is a really exciting trend to have in our county. You can see that from 2012, we had 532 farms, and you can see this from actually from 2017 to 2022, we lost about 5%, which ends up being about 29 farms since 2012. Our land, this is the breakdown of how our land is being used. 61% is for crops, 11% in pasture, and 20% in woodland. You can also see this jump in 10% from 2017 to 2022 here. So I mentioned, according to the USDA, a small farm has a gross income under $250,000. However, most of our farms fall into this category. So I've further defined it for Schoharie. So you can see these very small farms are between 1 and 9 acres here. And then 10 to 49 acres are our small farms. So I kind of group these together around acreage. Our mid-sized farms here are 50 to just under 500 acres, and large is over 500 acres. So that's how I'm kind of thinking about them for our county and for New York. So our small farms are increasing, but our mid-sized farms are actually decreasing. So you can see from 2012 here, this chunk in the middle here has dropped a bit. The average net income is $27,000, which is a 14% decrease since 2017. However, production expenses have gone up 51% in the same time frame. Expenses average $107,000 per farm. We are not faring better than the state in this area, which is a negative trend. The state shows the average gross and net farm incomes are actually going up, whereas ours are not. This is also a breakdown of farm sales as a percentage of the total farm sales in our county. And so this is where you can see folks who are making under $10,000, and that has decreased from 2012 to 2022. So let's talk about what we're growing. Our top crops by acreage, or the top crop by acreage, is hay. You can see that here on this, in this chunk of data here. We only have 458 acres of vegetables, but it still comes in at number 4 as a top crop by sales. So we have top crops by sales and top livestock products by sales in these two categories. When you look at them all together, vegetables are at number 4. Milk, unsurprisingly, is by far and away our top product in all ag sales. And then in the livestock category, that's followed by cattle. And in the crop category, that's followed by grains and then vegetables. Number 6 here in this livestock category is actually hogs and pigs at 302,000. So the following 3 slides only include operations with sales who reported to the USDA. So some of the numbers might seem different than what your gut reaction may be telling you, or based on the community that you know. But again, these are only operations with sales. So that's my caveat here. So these numbers represent the percent change in number of farms in the last decade, whether they've gone up or down. The biggest loss that we've had is in dairy. We lost 26 farms in the last decade, which is a 41% decrease. Livestock farms actually increased by a percentage. Grain down 22% and hay down 16%. Sorry. And these are the total number of farms in these big numbers here. I also looked at some of our smaller industries like orchards, vegetables, flowers, greenhouse. The biggest increase that we've seen among these farms is the number of orchards, which grew 105% from 20 in 2012 to 41 in 2022. Floriculture farm businesses are also on the rise. So that grew by 25% in the last decade, which is a really nice trend to see. We gained 12 new honey producers and 9 new maple producers in the last decade. The honey producers, that represents 183% increase in the number of producers. Again, this is just folks that report sales to the USDA. So my sense is that we may even have more of some of these producers and these niche agricultural products. So my guess is that these numbers might even be higher. And then kind of an overview of local food sales and trends. The USDA collects all of this type of specific sales data around who you're selling to as a farm and the type of operation you are. So we have 104 farms with direct-to-consumer market sales. Direct-to-consumer market sales are farms with direct-to-consumer market sales are often smaller farms. They are not wholesaling, or that's not their predominant market channel. We have 61 farms that reported selling direct to retail, a food hub, or doing wholesale sales. These are going to be our larger farms. Both of these types, these numbers have decreased in the last decade. Value-added operations, however, have grown. This is up from 48 in 2012. We now have 56 reported value-added operations. And again, my guess is that that number is actually a bit higher. Looking at agritourism. So as I mentioned previously, for the state, agritourism represents the biggest jump in farm market channel income. Agritourism, for anyone who doesn't know, is a form of enterprise that links agricultural production with tourism to attract visitors onto a farm or other agricultural business. It can include education, entertainment, historical, cultural, recreational, pick your own. It really just invites the public onto your farm and gives you an additional income stream. So, in 2012, we had 4 farms report that they engaged in agritourism activities, representing $4,000. Uh, in the last decade, well, actually, we only have data from 2017. We didn't get the 2022 data was not available yet. So between these two ag censuses, we had a tripling of operations in just 5 years, which represents a really positive trend in this area. So again, it's the fastest growing farm income category across the state, but also for our farmers as well. Agritourism income grew by 78%, on average across the state. So this really represents a strong opportunity here. So finally, a big part of my job, but also about continuing to support our agricultural lands and our ag economy is to protect farmland in the county. And we have a number of mechanisms at the county and state level that we do that. We have property tax relief for agricultural land. So that's when farms engage in, or they apply for an ag assessment and they get tax exemption if they are engaging in farm activity at $10,000 gross sales. We have our agricultural districting law, which protects farmland. We have Schoharie land trusts and conservation easements, which also works with farmers to protect farmland. And then we have a countywide ag and farmland protection plan. In addition to 3 of our towns have their own ag and farmland protection plan, Wright, Carlisle, and Seward. So essential takeaways, and then I'm going to pause here so that you guys can ask questions. And I don't know if there's been anything in the chat, but essential takeaways from this data is that, so much of our county identity is defined by the hundreds and hundreds of very small farms that populate and dot our countryside. But as our farms consolidate and we have fewer of them, we will also have fewer individuals and families who are agricultural. And that will impact our identity as a county. And so, the data shows that we're losing our smaller and mid-sized farms, and those who are farming are having trouble continuing to do it economically sustainably. And so, this is a time for us to really support these farms and provide interventions that help folks be successful in their business ventures. The bright spots are in some of these newer emerging market channels and farm products like value-added production growth, like the honey and maple products, and adding value to your raw agricultural goods so that you get higher price point or a premium price point for your product, opportunities through a growing agritourism industry, and then that big jump that we've seen in orchards, tree fruit, and floriculture. So our agriculture identity is in flux. It's changing, but I'm really excited to see what the next decade looks like, and hopefully I'll be here to help shepherd that. a bit. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. I'm going to pause there. How am I doing on time? I think I'm okay because I then have the farmers market results that I'd love to share with you. But I know that was a lot of information. So I'm happy to take any questions. And I'm looking at the chat right now. Are there community supported ag share opportunities? So thank you, Colleen. Oh, and I see Colleen actually had another question. Are larger farms gobbling up the smaller farms? So one of the slides showed that even though the number of farms is decreasing, the average size of a farm is increasing, right? Because it's requiring more and more land or more and more animals in order to financially survive. So that would be my takeaway, Colleen, is exactly that, that farms are consolidating in order to be financially able to survive. And then in terms of CSAs, so community supported agriculture is, for anyone who doesn't know, is a model where usually it's produce farms, but it can be bread or eggs. There's even now beef models, beef or meat CSA shares, where customers purchase upfront in the season from a farm, and they get then weekly distributions. So we do have a handful of CSA farms here, and I say handful like I know of 3 that do that. That doesn't mean that's all of them. That's just the ones that I know of. Um, they're the bigger trend that I've seen with the farms in our area is having like a roadside stand, is having a farm stand on your property. That's been a route that a lot of these farms have taken versus the CSA model. Does that answer your question, Colleen? Okay. Any other questions around this very data heavy presentation? I'm happy to go back to any slides that you had questions on or.
So Carolina Paul Conroy.
Hi, Paul.
First of all, fabulous overview. I love all this. I, as you know, I was in marketing for quite a bit of my career. So this is great data, and it's organized well. So I just had a couple of thoughts and ideas and takeaways from this. It seems like we have a scale issue, right? In terms of the Midwest or even California, Mexico, whatever. And that's showing up in the dairy, grain, and hay commodities dropping quite significantly, I would say, right? But we do have an opportunity, it seems like, in niche areas like agritourism, honey, flowers, orchards. My question is, have you thought about how we can, and I would add on top of that, we have a relatively small percentage selling direct. So we have a supply chain issue too in terms of margins, which is producing very low margins. So do we have any thoughts or ideas on how to help convert some of those commodity-based farms, and then also how to really put some juice into the niche areas to grow them at an even faster rate?
That's a great question. I'm wondering if you're a plant that I didn't know about, because I think, one of the opportunities that I see for us is providing more market opportunities for these smaller farmers so that they have that they can enter markets and and diversify the number of outlets that they're selling to locally or regionally. And that's one of the reasons why we've been looking. My office has been working to look into this farmers market, a countywide farmers market, because offer it would offer a new market channel for these folks, but also an entry point into selling direct that we don't have. We do. I shouldn't say we don't have that here, because a lot of folks, create relationships with other farm stands and the Carrot Barn and other stores or local retailers. It's a lot of legwork for them to go and kind of make all those relationships. And I think having a market that provides this entry level for farms, and also for them to showcase their products and get their feet wet in doing some of that marketing. I think that that's a really great opportunity to support those. It creates a pipeline for those smaller farmers to grow and eventually outgrow a farmer's market potentially and start selling to larger outlets. And so creating more opportunities like that, where we can kind of move these smaller or new and beginning farmers that are the future of our agriculture here, that we can have a pipeline of growth for them, I think is where we'd really like to focus. And so a farmer's market is just one example of that. The other piece that I've worked on a bit this year is connecting farmers with more grant opportunities for growth.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of federal and also state money that has been out there in the past that our farmers in Schoharie County specifically have not taken advantage of. And so that was one of the things I really focused on this winter, was letting folks know what grant opportunities are open, both for dairy. There's a number of really phenomenal dairy programs right now through the Northeast Dairy Business Center and a few others, one out of Vermont. And but also our other food producers through New York Grown and Certified, and a number of other, there's a number of other state programs too through Ag and Market. So, infusing our small businesses, our small farm businesses with some of this money that has not traditionally come into our county is another way to grow those businesses so that they can be more sustainable.
Yes. Yeah, what I hear you saying is that there's an opportunity for demand creation here, and maybe realign the supply chain to address the margin issues, right? And pulling that off. When Jason Evans was at the Institute for Rural Vitality, we talked about perhaps getting trucks with, Sprinter vans with Schoharie Valley, so help tourism, service the capital region, even maybe New York City, with local produce, right? And that he left, and that idea just never got off the ground. But that would help tourism and farming. You're selling direct that way, improves margins, and certainly could improve the demand. There's nothing we can do about the scale issue. It is what it is, right? So they can consolidate, but that has limitations for the obvious reasons, I think. So that's again, great amount of data here, and terrific. And I think you've kind of summarized what the challenges are, and we just have to help in whatever way we can. So that's my takeaway anyway. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, I appreciate that. Any other thoughts?
This is Julie from Seek. Thank you, Caroline and Paul, for the great dialogue, and Mayor Henry for asking great questions. I also want to do a shout out to the Institute for Rural Vitality. They are on the call. Bennett's here from SUNY Cobiskill. I think we're very lucky in Schoharie County to have the institution that really hyper focuses on agriculture, kind of owns this space in New York State, has 2 incubators. So Bennett if willing, if you want to give a quick one too on what the IRV offers or can help in the state of agriculture, I think now would be a good time to share that. You've got a great audience here.
Yeah, sorry, I was eating lunch.
Oh, sorry.
It's all
Sure,
good.
it's farm fresh, Bennett.
It is. It's right from the carriage house. They
Great.
just opened back up again.
Perfect.
So what the IRV does is we offer a whole bunch of different services to farmers and entrepreneurs throughout Mohawk Valley and throughout the rest of the state. We have a whole bunch of shared use facilities, dairy processing, meat processing, some commercial kitchens. We offer business assistance, technical assistance, monthly meetings, weekly meetings. You can reach out to us at any time. We have a food scientist on staff that can help you formulate your food products, do some value-added food product formulation, and we can also help you get grants as well. I don't know if I missed anything there, but
I think
that's about it.
that's a great summary. Another, and Emily just dropped the SUNY Cobleskill Institute for Rural Vitality link in the chat. Another thought is the New York State Grown and Certified. Caroline, I think that was one of your initiatives, and I think your predecessor started down that path as well. So is there still work or energy or focus around that particular program? Is it still in the state budget? Where does that stand?
Yeah, so I mentioned that as one of the programs that I was really pushing this winter, in part because if you become New York State Grown and Certified, which is a marketing program through Ag and Markets, it opens up a number of grant opportunities that are only available to these producers. And the New York State Grown and Certified program essentially says, your farm products are at a higher level of kind of food safety, sustainability, environmental health than ones that are not. And they have a number of opportunities, especially around marketing, that is open to farms that are New York Grown and Certified. And I see this as a program that really adds a lot of value to farms in our area. And I think I've worked with at least 10 farms so far on getting certified. And you get certified by product area. So your whole farm doesn't get certified. It's product specific because there's certain food safety and environmental requirements per product. So that's I think a great opportunity. And they offer a lot of resources. And so I kind of help funnel some of that down from the Ag and Markets stratosphere and funnel that into our county as well. And I know IRV does some of that support as well, as does our Soil and Water District. And I've worked with the IRV closely this year on grant support for our farmers, often doing kind of an initial review and kind of support on concept for folks that come to me, and then handing them to the business folks at IRV who really understand the business side and economics side of a farm business. And so we've done a lot of great kind of handoffs this year too around that.
That's awesome to hear that collaboration and the work. It's not in silos, pun fully intended, but there's collaboration across agencies and organizations in Schoharie County. And it's kind of a great lead into the farmers market survey results that you've been working on.
Yeah, and so I'm excited to share this. Again, a little data heavy. You guys can sense that I'm a bit of a data nerd here, but again, please stop me if you have any questions or put them in the chat if you don't want to interrupt, because I really want to share this out and get any feedback that you have. So really quickly, Um, I'm going to share this survey closed in April. And it was a joint effort. This survey overview, is a lot of text and you don't need to read it. But essentially what it says is that um, this fall, shortly after I took this position, I started working with a number of folks in our county that were interested in starting a farmer's market. At least understanding what the potential was to have a county-wide market, a larger market than we have had in the past. And so I worked with a farmer from the Festival Farmers Market, and the health department here at the county, Veterans Affairs, the IRV, and Cornell Extension. Half of you guys are on this call, to design a survey and share it far and wide, to understand, what the interest is from both customers and also potential farmer vendors in starting a new market here and what that could look like. So we launched we launched the survey in February of this year. We sent it far and wide to a number of listservs, a number of folks on this call, Farm Bureau, Seek, our friends at CADE, our friends at Ag and Markets, Extension. People sent it across the region. And we got a really solid response rate, which is part of why I'm really excited to share it with you today. So sorry, we'll talk a little bit about the results, kind of takeaways from what that all means, and then next steps with this project and what the opportunities are. So this again is just a lot of text to give an overview of the process of distributing the survey. So we had 455 total responses, which is really great. And this slide here shows where the responses are coming from. Okay, so we have a customer response map here. And actually, let me get my pointer. I just discovered this feature on Zoom. We've got our customer response map here. So we had 353 customer responses from 38 towns and 8 counties across the state. All of these folks saying, yes, I'd be interested in a market in Schoharie County. Here's our vendor farmer response map. This is where all the farmers came from. We had 102 farmer responses from 42 towns and 14 counties across the state. Almost every town in Schoharie County was represented. And on the customer side, we had 22 towns outside the county. So, overall takeaway here is that there's a high interest in a new market, from the Capital District down to the Catskills and Upper Hudson Valley. So this kind of looks at, a breakdown of where folks are coming from within Schoharie County in particular. Only 12% of customer responses actually were outside the county. So these are local customers that are interested in a market. And to Paul's point earlier, we don't necessarily have to go all the way to New York City to find a market or to find customers, because we had 308 customers just respond to this survey that were in Schoharie County. And so this shows where the customer responses are coming from. Really nice representation from all over the county. And then here's where the farmer vendor response locations are. In both cases, Cobleskill heavily represented. That is our population center. Customer responses, though, there were more from Schoharie than Cobleskill, but the top 3 towns are were strongly represented. And with farmer responses, it was Cobleskill, Middleburg, and then Richmondville, actually. And then as a reminder, Cobleskill, these were zip codes. So there are a number of folks that have Cobleskill zip codes, but that are in like Seward or Lawyersville or some of these other hamlets too. Okay, so one of the first questions we ask both farmers and customers is, do you want a traditional farmers market that's in person, that's, a consistent event every week, or do you want a virtual or a virtual or online farmers market? There was an initiative from a few years ago called Schoharie Fresh that was led by SUNY Cobleskill that many folks remembered. And so, working with SUNY Cobleskill, we wanted to understand whether that's a model that should be brought back. So both customers and farmers really prefer a traditional farmers market or are open to some virtual options. So, not many people wanted just an online market. People really want something that is tangible, that's in person, that's an event, but are also interested in the potential to order online ahead of time and pick up at the market. We also asked folks, what type of products are you most interested in, and we asked farmers, what type of products do you have to sell? So this is a comparison of, what customers are interested in and what farmers have to sell. And if there should be any restrictions regarding those products. So, top 5 in this category was baked goods, both on the farmer vendor side and on the customer side. Again, number 2 must be New York State grown. You can see nobody wants a farmer's market selling out of state produce, not surprisingly. But then, number 3, restricted to producers from a specific geographic radius. This is really interesting. Again, really nice alignment between customers and farmer preferences. This is saying we really want to support the farmers that are in our county and in our region. And so that's an interesting takeaway here. The other major area of alignment is prepared foods. Customers want prepared foods, and we have a number of farmer vendors that are interested in providing prepared foods or are a food truck. Beer, wine, cider is kind of a close, top 5. More than a third are interested in having that available at the farmer's market. And almost half of vendors are saying, yes, we want that. Value-added foods was a little low. Only a quarter of customers said that this was, a priority. And although we had 40% farmer vendors saying that this was something that they had to offer. And so, in talking with our working group, we thought that perhaps the term value added may not be as a common term, and folks might not know actually what that means, which is totally understandable. These are products where you're taking a raw farm agricultural product and you're turning it into something, as Bennett mentioned. You're taking strawberries, you're turning them into jam. You're taking tomatoes, you're turning it into pasta sauce. But value added is a term that we often use kind of in our world, and that maybe the average person who's taken the survey may not have understood that, because it was a little low and we were surprised by that. I also, want to point out that people are not wanting like a flea market style manufactured products. Farmer vendors are not wanting that. Customers are really not wanting that. We really want a traditional market. So similar question. This is the specifics around the food items that you're interested in either purchasing or selling. So we have customers on yellow, farmers in green. And then I looked at top 5 alignment. So we have vegetables, bread or baked goods again, and honey, which I thought was really interesting. Especially because we have such, as you guys saw in the previous presentation, you know, an explosion of honey producers in the area. So I thought that was really a nice trend to see. Customers also, number 2, fruits. You know, 97% of customers are wanting fruit. And we don't have a lot of fruit producers here. That being said, you know, remember that we had 102 farmers responding to this survey. And this is just to gauge interest, right? And so, you know, even though we only had 16 folks say that they sell fruits, that's still 16 vendors potentially that are selling fruits. Not everyone's going to be able to sell at the market, but I think it shows that we do have a really diverse mix, that we could have a market that has, you know, a lot of unique products, and we kind of cover all the categories here. So that was really, really nice to see. We also asked, and this is specifically to farmers, and when I say farmers, it also included vendors who maybe didn't have an agricultural product but wanted to respond to the survey. So we asked farmers about amenities and infrastructure at the market. Top amenity is we need restroom facilities, which I thought was interesting. Also, protection from the elements was a strong desire. Wi-Fi, cell phone service. Farmers also want food trucks there, and music and entertainment. So, you know, I think this really speaks to the fact that you're going to go to a market for 5-6 hours. You need a bathroom. You want protection from weather if possible. And you need Wi-Fi or cell phone service because, you know, here are the desired payment methods here. Obviously, cash is king, number 1, but then number 2 is Venmo, and you need Wi-Fi in order to take Venmo. You need connectivity in order to take a credit card, and any of these cashless payments like Cash App or Apple Pay. So, you know, being in a central location would be important because of this desire to take these different kinds of payment methods. And research does show that the more types of payment methods that you can take, the higher your sales are. So it's good to see that our farmers are also aligned with that. Okay, so this is probably one of the most important slides because everyone that I've spoken to is like, well, where's the market going to be and what day of the week? And so unfortunately, we don't have necessarily totally conclusive data on this yet because I think this will be really dependent on you know, who actually ends up selling at the market, and who can commit to the market in the future. But unsurprisingly, we had Cobleskill and Schoharie as the top 2 locations. We also, this graph looks a little bit busy, but what it shows is the different times of day. So you have morning and midday in orange, and then afternoon and late afternoon in green. And so you can see that like 76% of folks want Saturday and the majority want morning or midday. Next is Sunday, 45% want Sunday, and the majority is morning, midday. You know, Friday has an opportunity here, 41%, you know, pretty close to Sunday. 41% are interested in Friday, and that late afternoon, evening time was a little bit more desirable there. We also had some write-ins for market location. Jefferson, Richmondville, people wrote in close to town, and also SUNY Cobleskill. There's a number of questions that we asked in the survey that I'm not reporting on because they're kind of more for my understanding. But one of the questions was their willingness to travel. And 45 farmers reported that they'd be willing to travel over 20 miles to a new market. And that was half of respondents reported, half of farmer respondents saying that they would be willing to travel over 20 miles. And that was pretty significant. When thinking about, farmers coming from the Capital Region or Upper Catskills. 21 farmers said that they'd be willing to travel over 30 miles. And so I think that really indicates the opportunity for a market here, and attracting folks from not just within the county, but drawing people in. Okay, so here's kind of the top takeaways. I'm running short on time, so I'm not going to go through all of these, but I will make this available to seek to share out to folks that are interested, and I believe that this is also being recorded. This slide is probably the most important. Location and accessibility had the most mentions from write-in comments from both customers and vendors. Traditional in-person market was preferred with this potential for some kind of hybrid site, centralized location, visible, accessible locations such as the village of Schoharie, Cobleskill, near main roads. People wrote, Route 20, I-88, flat paved services, parking, ample, handicap accessible is crucial on a bus route. People also wrote in consistent location and schedule. Let's not have frequent changes. Let's make sure that people can rely on this as a go-to place to buy food. And then, as I just mentioned, the farmer vendors really want a weekend or morning market. This is some, again, everything is the numbers are the number of mentions that people wrote in the comments. I won't go through all of this. This is some specifics around products and vendors, affordability, having it be New York grown and local, really local products. And then some additional amenities and community engagement here is listed out. Recommendations from folks on, really what they'd like to see. Entertainment, coordinate with local businesses, make sure you have a strong marketing plan, really good input and feedback. This summer, really quickly, we are planning to kind of continue to get feedback from the community, sharing out this presentation on the survey, and then also hearing, whether folks are interested in being more engaged and joining a market committee, and ensuring that, hey, this is what we heard. Is this your experience as a farmer, as a community member? And here are the proposed locations that we'll be having 3 or 4 listening sessions this summer. This is also some ideas that have so far circulated around the location because that is a really big question. And this lists out the existing markets on Saturday morning, Sunday morning, Wednesday morning, that exist in our region. So we have a lot to kind of figure out. And I'm really excited to kind of host these listening sessions this summer so that we can gauge and further refine some of the model, the market model, and also, understand who really wants to be involved. And these are just some of the next steps, starting this summer, and then, hopefully by next spring, we're recruiting vendors for 2026. Okay, I know it's 1 p.m., so if you have to jump, completely understand. Thank you so much for joining. If I'm available to stay on a little bit longer to answer any questions, but really appreciate everyone who listened today. And I can go back because I know I ran through the last few slides a bit.
Anybody have any questions? All right, if not, I want to say a big thank you to Caroline. Thank you so much for all that amazing data, as well as your insights. I learned a lot personally. I hope everyone else did. And for everyone else, thank you so much for joining us for Economic Development Week. We do have one more event that is scheduled for tomorrow. That is Seek Associates. We are doing a walkabout through the village of Sharon Springs. So if you'd like to join us for that, or if you would like to watch the recordings from all of the past sessions that we had this week, including this one, they will be posted shortly on our YouTube channel, which is Schoharie Economic Enterprise Corporation, or you can find out more information about everything at our website, which is seecny.org. Thank you, everyone.